It all kicked off at a high school lunch table in Wylie, Texas. Seriously. One student, one cell phone video, and a table set up by an outside group. And just like that, within hours, this one little moment exploded into a massive statewide controversy. It pulled in politicians, parents, students, and it ended up raising some pretty deep questions about faith and freedom in our schools. Okay, let's get into it.
So this is it. This is the moment it all began. In his video, the student, Marco Hunter Lopez, sounds pretty concerned, maybe a little shocked. He makes the point that, sure, colleges visit all the time, but he's never seen a faith group on campus like this. He's definitely never seen anyone passing out Bibles. And that short clip, filmed during a lunch break, was basically the spark that lit the fuse. And yeah, that fuse burned fast. The video got posted to the Denton County Republican Party's social media, and from there, it just went everywhere. What started as a pretty small event at Wylie East High School was suddenly this huge flashpoint. It fueled this really heated debate all across Texas and got so big that the school district had no choice but to launch a full internal review. But you know how it is in the middle of all that online outrage, a really important question was kind of getting lost. What actually happened that day? So let's take a step back from the social media storm and look at what the school's own investigation actually found. Right, so what was this table really about? Was it some aggressive recruiting mission, which is what some people feared, or was it something else entirely? As it turns out, the context here is, well, it's everything. So the investigation found that the group, Why Islam, wasn't just there on some random Tuesday. They were on campus because it was National Hijab Day. Now, this is an international event, and it has a really clear stated goal: to try and foster dialogue and understanding about the hijab for non-Muslims. And okay, what about the scale of this thing? You know, the viral video kind of gave the impression of this massive school-wide event. But the district's review, it found that only about 50 students even stopped by the table during the entire lunch period. 50. In a pretty big high school. And this is where you really see the gap between what people thought happened and what actually did. So the district's review found that a student Muslim group had invited Why Islam, but, and this is key, the visit was never formally approved by the school. A staff member just made a mistake and let them on campus. And of those 50 or so students who stopped by, the review found that most of them just grabbed a piece of candy, and only about a dozen actually tried on a hijab. So bottom line, protocol was definitely breached, but the interaction itself was pretty minor. So if the event was so small, why did it cause such a gigantic reaction? To answer that, we kind of have to zoom out from Wylie East High School and look at the much bigger cultural picture in Texas. This comparison, right here, gets to the absolute heart of the friction. On one side, you've got a one-time, unapproved table with totally optional items. And on the other side, you have a state law that mandates a permanent Christian symbol in every single public school classroom. You can see how for a lot of students this felt like a huge double standard. And that's exactly what another student, Kennedy Williams, pointed out. To her, it just seemed hypocritical. She basically said it's just another religion and they weren't forcing it on anyone. Her take really shows how students themselves are trying to make sense of these tricky cultural lines. So who exactly is this group at the center of the storm? Well, Muslims make up just 2% of the population in Texas, a tiny fraction. And yet their presence has become this disproportionately loud flashpoint in town halls, on school boards, and in political fights across the whole state. So why is that? Well, one political consultant put it this way: the fear of Sharia law, which, by the way, was mentioned in that original student video, is like a new political border. It's a lightning rod. It's an issue that can be used to get voters riled up and generate outrage almost in an instant. And look, this whole thing at Wylie East didn't just happen in a vacuum. It's actually part of a pretty clear pattern. I mean, just last year, politicians launched an investigation into a planned Islamic community called Epic City, all based on these unfounded claims about Sharia law. We've seen activists trying to get bans on hijabs. This lunchtime table fits right into a much larger, ongoing story of scrutiny. So what does this small story about one high school lunch table really tell us about the bigger, unsettled questions we're all wrestling with as a country? You know, the public comments on this story were incredibly revealing. On one side of this debate, you had people like Bridget Keelis-Fessick. And for her, it was a pretty simple matter of fairness. Her argument was basically, look, if one religion is mandated in schools, why can't other religions get a chance to share their faith as long as nobody's being forced? But then, on the complete opposite end, you had a totally different take. Harvey Darwin Myers II argued this isn't about religious equality at all. He sees Islam as a political ideology that's just fundamentally at odds with the U.S. Constitution, believing its ultimate goal is an Islamic state, which would just demolish the separation of church and state. And this brings us right to the core questions this whole thing forces us to think about. It really is a question of perception. When one faith's symbols are a mandated part of the wallpaper, does the appearance of another faith's symbols automatically feel like some kind of threat?
So how should we really frame what happened here? Was this, like some people claimed, a huge constitutional crisis unfolding in a school hallway? Or was it a minor screw-up with protocol, a small event that was just deliberately blown way out of proportion by our polarized political climate for maximum effect?
And that leads us to maybe the biggest question of all. Does the sheer intensity of the reaction to this one little table tell us something about our deeper, maybe unspoken anxieties? Anxieties about who belongs, which traditions get to be seen as part of the American story, and which ones are still, for so many people, treated as foreign, as outsiders. That, right there, is the unsettled question at the very heart of this story.